Hey guys, this is Madison from Everest Direct Mail and Marketing, where we like our marketing like our advice, and that is direct. As a disclaimer, I am not a marketing genius. I'm just a guy that mails millions of direct marketing pieces a month for companies just like yours, and I track what works and what doesn't. So welcome to another episode of Marketing Sucks. Roll the intro. All right, so why does marketing suck for lawn care companies? That's the big question of the day. So most businesses advertise without knowing what they are doing. They're being sold kind of a package of goods from whatever advertising company, whether it's somebody huge like Facebook or Google or your local SEO company down the street. Marketing sucks because not every business in the same industry can use the exact same marketing strategy. And this is where marketing becomes complicated and you end up spending money on something that might work. And that's why companies selling advertising solutions to you always market that they have some sort of magic bullet to solve all your problems overnight. And this creates what we call budget diversions, and it handicaps a business from spending real money on real advertising solutions to get customers. Because unfortunately, all advertising is solved with you, and somebody isn't going to come in overnight and say, listen, this is what you need to do to grow your business. Because every business is so different, and I'm not going to get into, get ourselves into the weeds by talking about that you need better tracking in your CRMs and you need better drip email follow-up schedules and cadence schedules and so on and so forth, and get all sciencey about it. What I will tell you is that every lead and customer that you get, no matter if it's a phone call or a web form or something like that, you have to notate where they came from. How did you find out about us? It's still to this day in age, in 2018, it shocks me how many businesses don't actually ask this fundamental question of saying, how did you find out about us? What medium did you find out? And tell me about yourself. Who are you? Are you a billionaire? Are you just the mom pop from down the street? Are you, who are you? What's your demographic? And there's always ways to kind of get that information from your leads and customers that are just kind of common sense methods. So basically, I'm going to talk specifically about direct mail advertising because that is the expertise that I'm at, and also a super effective form of consumer advertising that can deliver better return on investment versus online ads, which is kind of targeting everybody. So direct mail advertising are things like postcards and letters and self-mailers. So if you are here because you have a lawn care company and you are either sick and tired of spending money and getting a poor return on investment on advertising, or you simply have no idea what in your marketing is working, you're getting in leads, but you're not exactly sure why or how, then this video is definitely for you. But we're going to keep it extremely simple. So we're just going to keep it down to a few things on how your direct response campaigns need to go down. So first, as I said, know that direct mail works super well for any business that targets consumers, and that's what's super important. Direct mail for business to business has a horrible return on investment, and you have to spend a ton of money per lead just to get through the gatekeeper and to get your messages across, your spark messages across, to actually get something done. So that's why we actually tell clients, like, people are wanting to do B2B, it's got to be a very specific business to business campaign. So we want to make sure we have return clients coming back all the time, or of course if you're doing direct mail on your own, which you absolutely certainly can, we tell people it's like you make sure to kind of suppress all of your B2B leads. Second, all direct marketing starts with the science of the mailing list. So an example of what not to do with a mailing list is this example. We had a landscaping client, which a lot of you are probably landscapers on top of doing all sorts of other stuff, and gravel and paving companies, basically kind of all around, where you might just be as simple as just mowing lawns. So this really applies to you and so many companies that end up falling into the trap of spending too much money. So we had a landscaping client that really wanted to try direct mail again. And this is a really common thing where people say, I've already tried direct mail, it doesn't work. I've already tried direct response, it doesn't work. In fact, I don't know what's working. I've tried television advertising, I got some leads, I guess it worked, but not really, maybe. So everyone ends up getting themselves into this kind of bubble. So this is a really good example of what happens to so many companies. So they haven't done it in a while because it never worked. It was around springtime, so it was going to be a good time of year, and a big part of their business were year-round lawn maintenance agreements. So spring was their busy time for signing these contracts. So they wanted to use every door direct mail, or EDDM, because they saw it was an awesome way of getting super cheap postage. They mailed about 138,000 households at a total cost of about $62,000. So that's 44 cents per household. And it seems like a really good deal. You don't have to buy a mailing list. You can just get the postcard and just spray everybody in neighborhoods. And it's like a really effective way, right? So that's kind of the entire purpose of every door direct mail, is like you can just hit everybody, and every household doesn't cost you very much at all. So they were $62,000 all in, and their response rate was 0.0005%. That's right, that's a half of a half a percent. So I have 138,000 households, they got 69 leads. That's like $900 a lead. So needless to say, they probably don't do any postcards anymore. They probably don't do any direct mail. They're completely disenchanted to doing any sort of direct response advertising, or maybe even advertising at all. In fact, I wonder if they're still in business. So really it boils down to that the mailing list is the holy grail, and almost everybody just says this: I need to mail single family homes where they make like $120,000 a year in this town and the adjacent town next to it. So that logic seems like it would work because, yeah, high income household probably has a lawn, and they also have money to pay you because, you know, you're not going to mow their lawn for free. But that's the wrong way of going about it. That's basically an ill-conceived logic that we see 90% of our clients come in that direction, is where they say, I just need a simple mailing list, and I like the big number, and I just want a whole bunch of people that I can mail to, and it's that simple. But it's not the case at all. So the thing is that before your postcard campaigns get going, you may be dead in the water before you even start laying down ink on paper because of your mailing list. We have another video kind of pertaining to the mixture of focus whenever doing a direct response campaign, Facebook ads, really any advertising. It could be billboards, vehicle wraps, it doesn't really matter. And it's called the 40-40-20 rule. And one of those 40s is a 40%. It's 40%, 40%, 20%. One of those 40%, that is actually the mailing list. That 20% is going to surprise you, and we'll talk about it in this video a little bit. But the biggest thing you need to focus on before you even start your campaign, or even choosing what color letters I want and different things like that, is focus on your mailing list, because that mailing list is your customers. So that's really what it boils down to. All right, so that video can kind of go down into a little bit more detail, and I definitely highly recommend you watching that. So anyway, brass tacks. So this is where you should probably start writing stuff down, because I'm just going to kind of start throwing these things out, and this is what you need to apply, even if you're with a current marketing company or whatnot. This is kind of how you need to change your campaign. So first of all, let's talk about the mailing list. So number one. So this is the physical traits of where your ideal customer lives. Now, I'm not talking about your customer. We'll get to that. We are talking about the physical elements, the environment that your customer lives in. So these are all things all your best customers have in common, which I said earlier, you need to track all these things. You need to figure out where they live, what they live in, on all your existing customers or new leads that come in on a daily basis. You need to track all this stuff. And a lot of people don't think to track, even if you get some hey, I need a quote to come to this house, here's the address. Go on to your GIS and look at the square footage of the house, how many bedrooms it has. And even if you're never stepping in it, these are physical traits that your potential customer live in that you can really target and identify. So, so basically for lawn care, because we're talking all about lawn care in this video, for lawn care, those could be single family households, right? So you want someone single family, which we mentioned before, that's kind of a no-brainer. You want make sure the house sits on, let's say, a half an acre up to 3 acres, because anything above 3 acres, a lot of people maybe have kind of their own tractors and they're kind of dedicated. But that half acre to 3 acres seems to be a sweet spot for a lot of lawn care companies. And then you want to make sure the house is 1,500 square feet or larger. There are more traits to pick from, but that's a really good starting point. And of course, as you're researching your current customer list, you're gonna identify some of these traits like, oh, well, I have all these customers that they all have this one special thing about them, or, you know, hey, they all live on paved roads and I don't have anyone living on a gravel road that's my customer or whatnot. So you're kind of just looking at the majority in whole. Remember, the goal here is to try to win customers, not just kind of spray, or we call hammer, potential customers all over the place. Number 2, so this is kind of a big one. So this is creative propensities. Creative propensities of the decision maker. So you have to identify your decision maker either by the, let's just say like a traditional household. So you've got a husband and wife and you have kids, whoever's actually writing the check. That could be the wife, could be the husband, it could be a mixture of the two. But you need to identify the commonality of the decision maker. And it really doesn't matter if it's male or female. You just kind of have to look at the household in general. So what are creative propensities? So these are interests or commonalities of the decision maker. This is their interests, their hobbies, different things like that. And there's thousands of propensities, such as what magazines they subscribe to, what do they drive, what kind of vehicle do they drive, their credit card spending habits, their credit card utilization. Do they spend a lot on their credit cards? Do they have a 0% credit card utilization? That's just one example of a propensity, including their credit scores. They have bad credit scores, good credit scores, all sorts of different things like that. So here's another example for lawn care for number 2. Those could be someone that is an executive at a company. So basically it's like, I just want to target their executives at a company. And the wife also works, so basically it's a dual working household, and maybe they have small children, so not teenagers, they have small younger children, and they have low credit card debt, so indicating that that they're very smart with their finances, also smart with efficiencies, right? So they understand the value of a working hour. And then, so basically what that means is that they're too busy to mow their own lawn. So what you can do is you can get creative here, and you can start thinking of all the things that your client has, or your potential client has in common, just a little interests and hobbies, different things. And there's thousands and thousands of commonalities that you can choose from, propensities to kind of really target and mold that list. That's why it's so important. Like the number one reason that marketing works is because you know your clientele, you know who you're targeting, you know who buys from you most often, and that's what's super important about this. Then third, and this wraps up the mailing list, is what we call negative propensities of the decision maker. So these are deal breaker things that end up coming up. So let's say, as an example, which, for a lawn care company, I can think of somebody that they subscribe to a lot of do-it-yourself magazines, right? So they're definitely the DIYer at home. Probably tells you they mow their own lawn and you don't want to waste any marketing material on them. So this is all stuff that would indicate that would just basically be somebody that would not be your ideal customer. And of course, you can always ask like the data person that you're talking to that's kind of helping you build this list. You can say, listen, I don't like anybody that fits in this demographic or does XYZ. I don't want to mail them. I don't want to market them because I know that only 1 out of 100 of them needs my help, and I don't even want to bother. They'll go on Google and search me, and if they need to really find me. So that's really common. What I like to identify that's pretty common is basically the negative propensity, is saying if somebody has a Lowe's or Home Depot credit card, I don't want to mail to them. So it's kind of like, well, if they have a credit card, they might say, hey, I can buy a lawnmower myself. It doesn't really matter. So it's kind of interesting. like how that can work and how that can be a negative propensity if you really get creative about it and start thinking about it. So those are the big 3 things that go into your mailing list. So that's physical traits of where your ideal customer lives. Number 2, creative propensities of the decision maker. And number 3, negative propensities of the decision maker. So those are the mailing lists. That's the first thing you want to do, is tackle the mailing list first. So let's talk about message, which is the stuff that's printed on the marketing piece or ad, right? Just the text and maybe some images and so on and so forth. So message, so that's number 2. And we're going in order. Mailing list first, message second, and then we'll get to the other stuff later. So your message has to just do 2 things. Not 4 things, not 1 thing, but 2 things. And they're actually pretty simple. But by following these instructions, you can actually kind of build a template for yourself on how the message has to go. So, it has to do 2 things. First, that it has to do, and this is one thing that people are just kind of get that moment like, well, of course, that makes sense, it's obvious. And that's the thing about marketing, is that everything is obvious. Everything should be obvious. So, you must get your prospect to read your message. So that's reading your message. That's kind of a big feat that you have to get over, and there's a few simple ways of doing that. So how do you do this? You have to choose a pretty sharp siren message, and that's what we call it, a siren message. This is a message that stops someone in their tracks. These are typically one of 3 things. First thing, you gotta make them laugh. Second thing, you have to offend them. You have to kind of bust their ego a little bit. And the third thing is you have to make them say yes or no out loud. They're gonna you want to invoke a reaction. So when you say, yes or no, you want them to be like, no, or whisper to themselves yes or whatnot. That's what you want to do when they read your siren message. So here's some examples for lawn care. So let's talk about make them laugh. So on the very front of the postcard, you have kind of a boring image of, grass and different things like that on there, that represents the industry. But in big, bold text, you say, I like big yards and I cannot lie. Of course, that is a play on the Sir Mix-a-Lot song, and which, of course, is a pop song. Everybody kind of knows it. Even if they don't know it, they read it and they kind of chuckle a little bit. And that's kind of this. So that's the front of the postcard. In the back of the postcard, you put the call to action, which we'll talk about in a second. An example of offend them, something that was really creative that we saw a client do one time following these steps is in big, bold text in the very front. So the first thing that clients read is, your lawn makes us yawn. So of course it is not a super invasive, offensive message, but it's a message that's going to get them to actually engage with your mail piece. So you don't want to personally attack someone if you're using the offend method, but you definitely want to say something like, we can solve a problem. So what this company did is saying, we think your lawn could really improve. We're trying to solve a problem that you have. And then thirdly, you've got them make them say yes or no. So in big bold text, we saw another company using this method saying, looking forward to mowing next week, ? And of course, if someone's getting that and they need your services, they may actually tell themselves, no, I'm not looking forward to mowing. And even if they are looking forward to mowing, you're invoking the reaction so they actually pay attention to what is part number 2. So that's a pretty big one. So you know your target area best and the type of message that best represents your business. The lowest read or open rates come from advertisements that do not have a siren message. So siren messages are either visual or written stimulation. That's kind of a best way to put it. So this is what makes advertising memorable. It's not about all about the content or anything. It's all about the siren message. So think of any Geico commercial. If you remember one, then they probably had an effective siren message. And I'm actually thinking a few of their commercials. And what's funny about some of the siren messages is that it may not have anything to do with insurance, which is kind of Geico. A lot of people remember that as they just have kind of these irrelevant commercials, but it invokes a reaction that people actually remember that commercial. Of course, it's a really big example, and their advertising budgets are massive, so they can use the saturation effect that that landscaping company I was talking about earlier was trying to do. But they definitely are really good at that siren message. So if you don't think you can come up with a good siren message, simply ask friends, family, or even your own employees for some ideas. Some of the best ideas will come from people outside of your industry, especially your potential users, your friends that need your services, but maybe they're not using your services. And I've even seen business owners post on Reddit telling their situation like, hey, I'm a company that does XYZ and I'm looking for a clever message. And actually some of the siren messages that people posted were pretty spectacular, and I hope they used them because they were very catchy. So that's definitely a big thing. So second element to your message is your call to action. And you probably heard the CTA, call to action, your message, so on and so forth. This, of course, is what you want someone to do with your mail piece. So you sent them the postcard, letter, self-mail, or anything like that, and then, of course, they now need to do something with it, right? So, so the worst call to actions I've ever seen, I like to use the whole worst because it's just a good thing where it's like, okay, if you think about doing this, this is the extreme, don't do it. So I think my favorite is kind of the following. It's like, one, call us on our toll-free number, or call us on our local number. So they put the 800 number and the local number right top and bottom of each other. And today you don't need any of that. You don't need even toll-free number. It's fine because it's memorable, but just use a local number, call tracking number, stuff like that. So they say your number. And then on top of it, they're all like, oh, also visit us online on our website. But don't forget about Facebook. Also visit us at our shop at this address. That's a really common thing where they're like, visit us on Facebook and even Twitter. And so like follow us on Instagram. So they have like, they have like their @ tag for Instagram and Twitter. It's like, okay, it's a lot, and then they may even have something that's like which is the worst offender of all, is QR codes. Nobody uses QR codes. Nobody. We have done extensive studies ourselves, and no one uses QR codes. Nobody. Don't use QR code. So they have a QR code. So in all, they have 6 call to actions on this mail piece, and that's crazy. Just because you have those doesn't mean you should be using them. So of course, you want to have a call, right? And then you want to have an action. That means one call and one action. You need to make it extremely simple. So there's 2 elements to that. There's a call, and then the call element, and then there's an action element. So a call element is what you're trying to call the person saying, hey, this is what we're offering. And then an action be like, this is how you can act upon that offer, right? So a good example is something that's 50% off all lawn services. Call 732-182-3812. That phrase is literally one call, which is the 50% off, and then the action, which is the phone number. So one tip that we always tell people, and if you think about it, it makes a whole lot of sense, even though it's 2018. You might be watching this video in 2019 and 2020, and that's all going to be relative for years to come, is that it is 2 steps to do a phone, for someone to call, right? So it's going to be your phone and then dial, whereas a website is 4 steps. That's going to be phone or computer, browser, they have to open up Chrome, Firefox, Edge, something like that. They have to type in your web address after that, and then they have to fill out a form or some other call to action. So you're actually moving that action even further. They're taking the initial action, and then you're actually moving them further down the pipe. And there's all sorts of different tricks you can do to try to increase your responsible phone number. It's just the easiest way. Just give me a call, and then we'll go ahead and redeem the offer. And fourth, the mail piece itself. Should it be a letter or a postcard? Should it be a self-mailer? Or should it be something creative and custom like you see all the big brands doing, die cutting stuff, all sorts of crazy mail pieces that try to get people's attention? So the physical mail piece is sort of a siren message in itself. You are trying to navigate people to your call to action, right? Because at this point, you already have a killer mailing list. You already have a killer siren message. You already have a killer call to action. So this part should be easy. And some businesses spend way too much time on designing the perfect mail piece. I've seen people spend 5 minutes on a mailing list, 5 minutes on a call to action and siren message, and 6 weeks on designing the perfect mail piece. It's amazing, especially a lot of advertising agencies for big brands love to do this, is that they got the mailing list, and they probably spend 20 minutes on the mailing list, and they spend months going back and forth on what color and shade blue they should use. It can get kind of crazy. So you already have all of this done. So some businesses just simply spend way too much time on designing that perfect mail piece. So let me lay down some quick benefits of each so you can kind of choose. So postcards, they're typically cheaper, but they're a little bit less engaging. If you have a crazy awesome siren message, a postcard would be the way to go, especially on the first mailing. Postcards do get lost in the pile of mail in the mailbox, so if you're targeting more rural areas, which typically have less mail inside the mailbox on a daily basis, a postcard may be the way to go, especially an oversized postcard, which of course you can get that to 6.25 by 11.5 inches as the maximum postcard size. Secondly is going to be letters. So of course that's going to be your envelope, see in the back wall, as well as an insert or multiple inserts, right? So letters allow you to do a little bit more while not spending a ton more money than what that postcard costs you, but you can you can basically get a little bit more about your call to action. You get a little bit more flexibility because first of all, letters engage your prospect. They have to open the envelope, which has a physical factor that the prospect is therefore engaged, and they're in what we call the hunt for discovery. So that's basically like, what's in the envelope? I got to open this thing to see what's in it, and they're taking a physical action to open the envelope and see what's inside. And that's why response rates are higher for letters due to the prospect being invested in learning more about your product, or the siren message by saying, what is this thing? I just want to know. That's why I said letters are kind of a siren message as well. And the cool thing about letters is that you can add in supplementary things such as magnets that can go on people's refrigerators, or oversized business cards, or even the most popular element is an extra coupon that people can redeem in person or something along that line. So letters are definitely something that is engaging and definitely is something that is important to do in your drip marketing campaign. Self-mailers are basically folded in tab, which is more of a hybrid between a letter and a postcard. And of course, you can have all the custom mail pieces, which especially for smaller to even mid-sized businesses, we do not recommend going that direction of getting all these custom mail pieces with all these different fancy die cutting and different things like that. They're really cool, but you're kind of breaking the 40-40-20 rule, which what I'm talking about right now is that 20%. So a lot of people focus too much on the 20% and not on the 80%, which is the mailing list and your message. So basically my advice for the types of mail pieces really come down to one thing. It's mailing your list multiple times, which is a must do. That is a must do, regardless of what people say about only showing your ad once to a person, and if they don't buy, don't market to them again. That message is completely insane. Because I mean, if that was the case, I would just personally take out a big loan and I would just mail postcard to everybody that is my prospective list in America, and then I'd be rich. I guess that's how that would work. People have different buying times. That's really important. Some people are just not going to be ready. There may be certain things, and they might be on vacation, they might be on all these different things. You want to mail your list. Although I do have a couple of things I like to say about my mailing lists and how many times I want to hit that mailing list, because in reality, it's not as often as people think. So we recommend starting out with a postcard. Then you do a letter with the same offer as the postcard. Then you do another letter right after the second letter with no offer in it, but the messaging is the same. At this point, people remember your first two marketing messages, and they will acknowledge the fact that you then sent them a new mail piece without an offer, which will create a sense of urgency on the last fourth drip. So the fourth drip, you basically want to move back to a postcard with the same offer on it. That fourth hit that you make with the postcard will be much more effective than the first hit with the postcard. So basically, postcard, letter, letter, and then finally a postcard. And I always recommend oversized postcards versus a small postcard, but if your message is time sensitive, go with a 4x6 postcard, focus on the message. So some people say mailing 6 to 8 times. My advice is 4 times, unless, of course, your response rate on each mailing is just amazing. So if you're getting a large response rate, even on the fourth one, well, then mail them again. But be very careful with that response rate. If it starts going down, you want to make sure to kind of halt and then go back to number 1. Revisit your mailing list. Go back and revisit it. All right, guys. I'm curious what direct marketing things that you've tried, what has worked before, what hasn't worked. Say it in the comments, direct message us. Just let us know at Everest Direct Mail what's worked and what we can help you out with. We offer a lot of great advice. We want to make sure that you succeed in your business. We want to make sure that you are discovering what marketing works on your own, and then you are going out in the world and executing the marketing at a higher level, because that's how all small businesses become medium businesses, and medium businesses become large businesses. All right, guys, my name is Madison with Everest Direct Mail and Marketing. Subscribe below for more episodes and Marketing Sucks videos, and also other cool videos offering no nonsense marketing advice. This has been Marketing Sucks, and happy lawn caring.